Good day to you and how you be, everybody. Today we're going to talk about prepping some screens. What are the chemicals that you need? What are the steps to reclaim them and then coat them and expose them and fix that little problem that when you're letting that screen dry and you bring it to your press and you're passing that ink through, there's some parts that just not going through is because it leaves something, little grease on that open mesh. How to fix that problem. So let's get started. To prep your screens, these are the things you're gonna be needing. You're gonna be needing a spatula, a scrubber, emulsion remover, a degreaser, a dehaze, that's like take out the ghost. You will need an ink remover, plus water and a place where you're gonna be washing these screens up. To ink remover, pay attention. There are two types of ink remover. One is called the press wash. The other one is called the screen wash. The difference is the press wash, this is what you're gonna do when your screen is on the press. When it's on the press and you gotta clear the screen a little bit or remove the ink and put another color ink, this is the one you're looking for. It's called the press wash. The screen wash is the one that you're gonna take to the booth when it's time to reclaim. Two different things. If you're using this on the press, what's gonna happen is it's gonna leave some oil on it. It's too oily. It might even stain your shirt, especially if you're using polyester, it's gonna stain it. So pay attention to the screen wash, meaning in the booth, and the press wash, meaning it's on the press. So the first thing you wanna do is remove the ink out of the mesh using your spatula. The next thing is remove the tape from the inside and remove the tape from the print side. Now, remove your screen and let's take it to the wash booth. So now that your screen is on the wash booth, you need a scrubber and we're gonna use the screen wash. You have a scrubber just to remove ink and a scrubber to degrease it. Don't use the same scrubber. Keep this one for the ink remover and another one for the degreaser. So now all you want to do is spray, scrub a little, then rinse out. Here's a little tip. When you're scrubbing the mesh, do not push it hard on it. Because what you're gonna do, you're gonna start losing the tension of the mesh. You wanna keep these screens with a high tension, so very lightly. You don't have to just go at it and start pushing, because that's how you start loosening tensions on screens. Now, the emulsion part. Turn around, spray. To wash out the emulsion, you could use a pressure washer or a garden hose. A garden hose is just as good as the pressure washer. The only thing, you're gonna take much longer to get every little spot in there. You don't want it to stay in there to completely get out of the mesh, but with a pressure washer, it makes things fast. And that's what we're gonna do right now, using the pressure washer. So now that the emulsion is already rinsed out, the next step is to dehaze them and degrease them. If you have a 2-in-1, meaning both dehaze and degrease all in one bottle, like this one here, the 2-in-1, meaning it has a degreaser and a dehazer, is pretty good. You could use it. But if you only have separate, you have a degreaser by itself and a haze, just the haze, use it first, then rinse out, and then use the degreaser. But when you have the 2-in-1, which is much easier, that's what you want to do. You want to use both together and leave them there for 30 seconds. And remember, now you're not using that same scrubber that you used to remove the ink and the emulsion. Now you got to use another new scrubber just to degrease them. So let's degrease them. Now what you want to do is let it sit there for about 30 seconds to a minute. Now that about 30 seconds already have passed, now you can start rinsing out. And what you want to start rinsing out with a regular hose if you want, just from the bottom to the top. Flip the screen, same thing. Check it out, nice and clean. The ghost is gone. Right after the wash, make sure you put it in front of a fan and let it sit there till it completely dries. Now it's time to coat your screens. To coat your screens, you're gonna need an emulsion. There are 3 types of emulsion. The one I use is a dual Q emulsion. It's from Ryonet SVP photopolymer hybrid emulsion, the blue one. 1 part ready to use emulsion for both graphic and textile applications. This hybrid plastisol and solvent friendly emulsion is great for shops. The other thing you're gonna need is a scoop coater. There's a sharp side and a round side. Try to use the sharp side. Just get that so you could just do 2 quotes in one side, 2 quotes on the other side. To coat your screens, you could use 2 ways. You could use one on the floor and the other one on the table. On the floor, what you want to do is put your scoop coat in the bottom, make sure the emulsion touching the screen, and while you're going up, you want to straighten out the screen. And then do the same thing on the back. Let it touch, come up, and finish it off. And what you want to hear is this. If you're hearing that, that means the emulsion is going well inside the mesh. Now the way I do it is putting on a table, something to hold in the bottom, something to hold it on the top. Just come, use your 2 hands, and now you have more control, and you'll be able to get that emulsion nice and even. And once your screen is coated, make sure when it's time to dry that you're putting it face down. The print side has to go down. This has to stay on the top. You want all that emulsion to sit on the bottom of the screen, so when you're passing that squeegee, it's nice and smooth. The other thing, let it sit there. This SVP hybrid emulsion with a fan, you could get it dry within an hour or 2, but like I always say in my videos, I'd rather just let it sit there for at least 24 hours and you have a good coated dry emulsion. Now that your screens are dry, time to expose. When you're gonna expose a screen, please make sure you're using a real good film. Make sure that you're using an inkjet printer. Once you print on that film, put the film on a light and see if there's any light going through that ink. That means it's gonna give you issues on exposing. But if it's very, very black, solid, that very little light going through, you're gonna have a great expose. To expose your screen, you're gonna need something like a light source. So you could get an exposure unit, or you could go to Home Depot and get a 500 watt halogen light, which these are pretty good. And if you're going to use the 500 watt halogen light, perfect. The emulsion I showed you, the Ryonet SVP hybrid emulsion, is perfect for that because it's only going to take you about 12 to 15 minutes to really expose. Try to get it as big as possible. They have them so it could really get more of the design, but it does work. Me, I'm using the Aurora Anatol exposure unit. Great exposure unit. Let me tell you, I am so happy with this exposure unit. I would recommend this exposure unit. If you're looking for an exposure unit, this is the one right here. Because This one, I had a job I had to do with halftones, and let me tell you, it took every little detail, came out beautiful, beautiful. Great exposure units. The LED has a air compressor where it's gonna tighten up the screen, and very, very fast. So looking for an exposure unit, go check out Anatol and check out the Aurora. But now, let's expose the screen. Here's a quick tip. When you start rinsing the screen, first from the inside, once you start rinsing it, the image gotta start already showing up. You gotta see it. If you're not seeing that image, there's some issues with the expose. So make sure that when you rinse the front and then the back, that image already gotta be showing. The other quick tip is once you rinse it real quick, just pass your hand through the image very lightly just to help that emulsion already get softened up. So when you come with your hose or with your pressure washer, it removes the stencil really, really fast. All right, so the screen just dry. If you have an air compressor, no problem. You're not gonna have no problem because the air compressor is gonna push most of the water out of the screen. But if you're using a fan, the way I'm using it, to dry the screen, once it dries, do not put it straight on the press. What you're looking for is some stains that the open mesh will have, because since you are letting it dry with a fan, the water that's on the emulsion is oily, is gonna start dripping in the open mesh, and then it'll dry there. And that's an issue because once you put the screen on the press and you start passing the ink, especially when it comes to white plastisol ink, that part, the ink is not gonna go through. That means you're gonna have to try to clean it out and move some ink away. It's a lot of issue. The best thing to do is before you even take it to the press, take it, put it on a table and get a damp rag with a little bit of degreaser and just pass it all around the open mesh to just try to take out all that oily residue that it stays on the open mesh, and it'll keep your open mesh nice and clean with none of that oil on it. So if you like this video, press that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Be thankful always, be grateful always, and just let God take you on the ride. Peace out.